So a little while ago, I did a video on my channel absolutely slating some of the worst book covers I've ever seen. Do I regret it? No. But some of you did comment that to counteract that barrage of brutality, I should also do a video about the best covers I've ever seen. Now, I have some beliefs about what makes a good book cover, and it's kind of because of spending my 20s working in the publishing industry, and also just because I'm an art school dropout with a bad case of creative ego complex. But I actually think the only way you can really honestly judge whether a book cover is successful is if you've actually read the book. This side of my shelves is full of books that I have never read, and oh, some of them are freaking gorgeous. This side of my bookshelves is full of books that I've actually read and wanted to keep. And you noticed, if you were here to shuffle through them with me, that a lot of them are kind of ugly. The devastating realization I have come to is that good book covers doesn't always equal good books. But I have picked out a little collection of 10 books that I think marry both perfectly. Making a pretty book is easy. There are some really pretty books on this side of the shelves, but I won't know whether they're good book covers until I've read the books. A good book cover attracts the eye, yes. Sometimes it makes a controversial statement, kind of like a thumbnail, if I'm honest. The art of the thumbnail is similar to the art of the book cover, but not only should they be getting people to click on the video or buy the book, but it should be finding the people who would actually enjoy the book. It shouldn't lie to the reader, because in the end of the day, the person that suffers the most is the author. If you write an incredible book, but your book cover designer attracts the wrong people who would never have enjoyed the book in the first place, all you're going to be left with is an influx of royalties at the very beginning of your writing career, and then crickets for the next 50 years, plus a barrage of really bad Goodreads and Amazon reviews that you don't deserve. So, on that note, I'm going to tell you why I think these book covers are pure genius, would smash, and why I think they're successful. So that next time you're in a bookshop, you can start to think about who is trying to lure you in, and if they might be a good suitor. This is one of the most beautiful memoirs I've ever read, and it has a really great title to start off with. It's called When Breath Becomes Air. At the age of 36, on the verge of completing a decade's training as a neurosurgeon, Paul was diagnosed with an inoperable lung cancer. One day he was a doctor treating the dying, the next he was a patient struggling to live. This book follows all the tropes of a supermarket memoir or medical memoir book. It uses photographs, it has blue, it has big, white, clear letters. You can see that all over this genre. So for the people who already love that genre, they're going to be like, oh, it's one of those books, cool, I'll like it, I'll take it, put it on my tab. But it also lures in more literary readers like me because of the clever way the book cover is constructed. You can see on the back we've got a man not actually seeing his face, which I think is a little bit more understated than the celebrity memoirs or the misery memoirs that tend to show the person's face. But it also shows very clearly that this is a person in scrubs, a doctor. There's the authority there. You immediately have the visual language of like, okay, he's a doctor. However, if you flip over to the back of the book, you've got the same model. I don't think it's actually the author, but it could be. The same model, instead with that recognisable patient gown on with the slit down the back, and the neckline is a little bit lower. I don't know about you, but I think like showing that part of the neck is very symbolic historically of a certain kind of vulnerability. I've noticed in the last 10 or 15 years that because of the digital age, the rise of ebooks and audiobooks, book cover designers, or the good ones at least, have been really working hard to take advantage of what a physical book is. How can they play with it as a 3D object? What is the plus side for a reader of owning the physical copy? This is such a simple way of showing the main narrative arc of the whole book, and the choice of blue not being like an NHS blue or a very blue plaster medicinal blue, but a kind of warm, almost cornflower blue, making it feel a little bit cozy, even though it also, like the premise also sounds terrifying. I would actually describe parts of this book as cozy, however dark that is, because the author really reflects on like what it is to live and how lucky he is to have lived, to have loved. I recommended this as a book, and I really applaud the cover designer, because I think from the sales stats, this actually genuinely found the right readers, which is very hard because I think the two types of readers that would enjoy this are two very different people who shop in very different places. Secondly, Yag Yazi's Transcendent Kingdom. I have always loved this book cover. I think it's brilliant. I think not only is it really beautiful, it uses a really unusual colour combination that I don't think you see very often on books, so that immediately draws your eye in. This is a book about a woman who loses her brother to addiction. Her brother was really, really into basketball, and she is studying addiction behaviours in animals like mice. So that, showing all that on a book cover would have been a bit much. Instead, the author chose really mathematical and scientific shapes to assemble something quite intricate and beautiful. If you look carefully at the front, you'll see that the actual frame that the images hang on is a basketball court. Like, that is something that for people who do care about basketball, it will be like ding ding ding. But it also has this very like repetitive scientific nature to it, so that you can believe that it is also about a woman who works in STEM. The patterns to me kind of evoke like a billiard board. Is that what it's called? I don't gamble with posh people, but I feel like it evokes that, but it also is mirrored in the text on Transcendent Kingdom, kind of almost like the words are being pulled away, which is literally transcendence. I think it's really eye-catching, whilst also like capturing how quiet and still this book is, how much it is a meditation on grief and on addiction and on the human condition. So I really like that it catches your eye without being garish, and I think it's just really clever, and the use of foil as well with the basketball court. End papers also. This is a bit of an unusual edition of one of my favourite books, The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid. This is still my favourite book of his. I have followed his career and read his other books, and I still think this is the best one. This is an eerie book told in second person, like you're the person that he's telling the story to, and it's about a man who is from Lahore and tries to integrate himself into the West, and is starting to succeed in that just as the two towers come down, and he starts to be radicalised, not by anyone from his home, but from the way he is treated by Americans. And it's so clever, it's so interesting. And I think this book cover in particular is really successful because, as you can see on one of the leaves, it evokes political leaders from the past like Mao and Marx, those kind of iconic people you see spray painted on the side of buildings. A kind of person who is no longer a person but just an emblem of something. So the fact that that is kind of what the book's about, that because of the political temperature in New York during the time that the main character was there, he was literally made to be an icon of something because of the way he looked rather than like a 3D person. So making the character 2D and putting him in this street graffiti art setting is really, really clever. And I just love the fact that the whole thing is in black and white apart from the American flag over his nose and mouth. I just, very, very clever. I love the use of photographs in a weird way on book covers, not in like a usual just like, here's a photograph and the title above it. Like, this is a kind of weird integration of illustration and photograph, and I think, again, literally couldn't do it better myself, can barely use Photoshop. This book cover designer is not only the book cover designer that I bashed in my bad book covers review, but they're also somebody who was tasked with a very hard thing, which was to give The Handmaid's Tale one of the most iconic books in modern history a new cover. The confident arrogance of this cover is what I love. The idea that immediately you will already know, especially because this was released when the Hulu first season was coming out, you'll already know the icon of the handmaid, the red with the white hood. And then the fact that the author and the title isn't even shown on the cover, it's only indented into the paper. It's just so cocky in a way that I love. It's very, very intriguing. It's incredibly simple and sleek. It feels like it was designed by like a Met Gala fashion designer kind of thing. This copy also has sprayed red edges, which isn't to do with the book cover designer, but is also a nice design feature. And on the back, it literally just has, "Don't let the bastards get you down," in Latin, which is part of the book and part of the like linguistic icons of the book. Inside, the end papers are repeating handmaids like that, and I just think that this is a great treatment of a book to kind of say, even for the people who don't know about the handmaids, it's like, you should know, because we're expecting you to know exactly what this is from this very simple silhouette. So if you don't, you should probably buy it and read it. This is an unusual assignment, but I think they understood it, and it was very successful. The Bandit Queens. I adored this book, and I think the premise is really interesting. It's set in a rural town in India where everything is very sleepy, but there's also a theme of murder and deception. And I like the use of kind of almost sensational magazine print, sort of newsprint, to talk about a place that isn't usually talked about. This kind of sensational treatment, instead of maybe like some people might have chosen to have like a beautiful landscape of an Indian village or something on the front cover. This is much more 80s TV show, but also kind of shut up and listen. It's very, very cool. And I also really like the use of the hennaed hands around to make a kind of circle. One of the themes of the book is the tumultuous sisterhood of abuse, and how like women don't have this idealistic relationship between them, and there is this, the romanticized girl power element to feminism is kind of a bit of a myth, but these women do connect and do come together because of the environment that they're in, and they kind of have to. And it's also kind of a circle of secrets as well. Like, circles don't only denote unity, they also denote other people being closed out, a kind of claustrophobia, and like putting all the hands together. It feels like the whole book is closing in on you, which is very much how the book feels when you read it. So again, I think if that visually intrigues you, then you would enjoy the book. And I like the kind of Indian motifs, the gold foiling mixed with a very camp 80s vibe. It's very intriguing when you look at it against all the other books on a bookshelf, and big success. Huge. Here's another one I found interesting. This is actually a copy of The Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay that isn't available where I live in the UK. I picked this up when I was in the US a while ago, and it's by Olive Editions. I love this book, but I never owned a physical copy because I wasn't really convinced by the physical copies. They didn't make me feel how the book felt, and it made me almost sad to own a physical copy of it. This one I think is really clever because it's picked a kind of very warm fuchsia, not a Barbie pink, but something that you would associate with more simpler forms of feminism. And because of the pairing of the title with that colour, it gives it a twist. It's like feminism, but make it not perfect. I also love the illustration of Roxane on the front. It's not supermarket photograph, memoir, this is a famous person. It's a quieter, I think more representative of her personality kind of illustration that makes it less about like how she looks and more about her pose and what she's thinking. She's in this kind of like interested, leaning in, a kind of sarcastic innocence of just like, oops, I think I'm a bad feminist. And it perfectly communicates, I think, the tone of her essays, which is like, I hear you, but have you ever thought about this? They're very political and strongly worded, but in a way that makes you feel like you're in a very honest, trusting chat with a friend. So I really love the pairing of the garish colour with the quite quiet and understated iconography and the stripy nautical spine. All this has nothing to do with me, which is a French translation. I really like this British cover. Woman on bold blank background having her face covered trend that has been really, really big in the last 2 years. But in 2013, I picked this up and I was so glad I did. The cover is handwritten. The insides are all about a romance that's documented in emails and pictures of objects and stuff. So it is a very personal little text. It has that kind of French coding to it because it's a French translation, and this is the British cover. So if you looked at it, you were like, oh yeah, maybe perhaps that is a little French in its iconography without putting like a massive baguette on the front or a French flag. So I think it would draw in the people who are interested in French books without outwardly having to shout. But the hidden face in this is what creates the intrigue. But unlike a lot of covers that I've seen recently, the hiding of the face is actually justified. The title is All This Has Nothing to Do With Me, and the action is, ooh, I want to hide. So I love that kind of wallflower, but we don't know why yet, kind of imagery. And I just think this is a really clear, clean, beautiful design. And also on the back, some of the text is handwritten as well. The inside has that pinstripe, and I just think this is a really beautifully executed illustrated cover that doesn't look too, I don't know, I think a lot of kind of illustrated covers can look kind of GCSE arty or a little bit kind of AI generated. I don't know, I just feel like they're hard to get right, and I think this one does it really, really well. I'm shaking my fist at this next one because I kind of hated this book, but it's not really the book or the author's fault. This is Earthlings by the author of The Convenience Store Woman, which is one of the books that I have loved. With this book, she went so dark in a very mischievous and eerily childish way, and it was a bit much for me. Trigger warning for literally everything you've ever thought you might need a trigger warning for. But I think the way the cover's done is really clever. Not only does it have this quite eerie plushy toy on the front cover, but it's made even more menacing by the fact that it has a claw on the back, like an arcade machine coming down for innocence. I do think it's really clever iconography, even though these things don't actually turn up in the text. I love the kind of Star Wars credits space vibe, and I love even more that if you put it in the dark, it actually, the letters glow in the dark, which I am easily tricked by a gimmick, and I thought that was really, really exciting. So I do think this book is successfully horrifying and beautiful and cute and terrifying, and I really like how understated and powerful it is. Like, bravo, Granta, you got me. But I am also horrified by what's inside this book, and I wasn't really sure of the point of it in the end. But this isn't a critique of the choice to write the book or the plot. I do think the writing was great, and I do think she's really talented, but I do think overall, looking back, this was a very successful cover. This is another book that I didn't actually like that much, but I do think was really successful and did communicate what was in it quite well. This is a very simple indie book about a breakup, and what I like about this book is that it has an extra flap, so it's closed here, and it kind of feels almost like a file when you open it, which is kind of how it reads. Also, it reads like a file of a history of somebody's relationship. So I really, really like that clever addition to the physical book. It also has illustrations in it that are printed in black and red, so the kind of cohesive feel of the whole book is really good. But I particularly really liked the design of the text on the cover of here. Everything feels a little bit skewed and off until you step back a little bit and you realise that the letters make up a heart. It is really simple, but I haven't seen it before. And also the letters on the front and the iconography of the keys on the back, where it's like two people's names on a set of keys, is less of a cliched way of showing a breakup, I think, and it's also indented, so it's very tactile. And I don't have loads to say about this one because it's just very simple but very good. And then finally, another one with a bit of arrogance I can respect. This is Be More Pirate: How to Take on the World and Win. And this is a little book about the history of rebellion and different ways to apply it to your own work. I love that they didn't just go for the skull and crossbones, they zoomed in, but like after a moment you can tell that it's a skull even though it's spray painted on. I like the neon pink, I think it really works. And on the back, they've included what they need to include, but in a very, I think this came out before Extinction Rebellion was a thing, you know, but it is very Extinction Rebellion with its kind of street team, pavement poster kind of arrangement of the text. We've also got the penguin logo skewed up here. The barcode's not where it usually is. The text is spilling out of the spine, and it gives it a very cut and stick, wallpaper pasty, Gruella, grassrootsy kind of attitude. I think this book has attitude, and I think that it's really hard to pull off arrogant attitude whilst also looking really welcoming and appealing and not too intimidating. So I think they did this really, really well. Tell me about some of your favorite book covers. Why were they successful? Why did they work? I would love to look them up and add them to my list myself. If you like this video, you might like some of these videos. This video was made possible by the Gumption Club, who tip me per video to make sure these videos keep happening. Frog Snog out.